Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Pyre. I was just observing the planner, Volfred's planner, just looking at whom I should fight against, which by the way, I'm thinking dissidents. I'm okay with... I don't want the dissidents to appear in a liberation rite. So if I hit them down a notch now, maybe they won't make it. I'm okay with the chastity being in a liberation rite, because I think as deplorable as they are, like it says here, corrupted opportunists who mean to use the rights for selfish gain, as bad as they are very easy to fight, I find, compared to the dissidents. And while I was looking through this, I noticed each one of these, looking through each one of these, their descriptions, they each have some interesting flavor text to them. I'm not going to read it now, but something interesting. What really caught my attention was this section here, additional notes. I have never seen this. It might have been there all along and I never noticed it. It's additional notes, latest thoughts about the progress on the plan and the current status of the quest. My dear friend Big Bertrude, she observes an unseen pattern in the stars. It seems we now can estimate how many rites remain until the next liberation. Huh. That's sick. Can you tell me? Oh yeah, look at this. Rites till next liberation 3, liberation rites conducted 2. And additional exiles required. Oh, no, yeah, we've got all the exiles. We're good. We good. In any case, I decided it was going to be the dissidents, right? Because they're an all-cur team, which means they're incredibly fast. Where's this? This is the Jomua. Okay, this is the new arena we will get back to. No, hold on. That's not the dissidents. Oh, damn it. I'm an idiot. Probably then, it's going to be between these two. Do we want to fight the Tempest, who are way down the bottom, which is funny because the story says that, oh, they're prideful at having prevailed more than all triumvirates combined, and they're literally at the bottom, second only to the withdrawn, because they just lost a liberation rite, so, like, what? Or the chastity. You know, let me just knock the chastity down a notch. If I knock the chastity down a notch, the dissonance, the fate will be... Nah, let's do the let's do the chastity. I don't like them anyway, I just want to have some kind of cathartic release. I want to fight someone and kill them, and completely destroy any hope they have of liberating themselves this cycle. We're due to face that Manly again. Something about him puts me off. Sees all this rights business like it'll make him rich and famous. You and Hedwin then go over what he knows. Oh, for your next adversary. Nice. H. Manly Tinderstuff. I really like his music. The offspring of a semi-famous sap industrialist who was born into wealth and lived in the lap of luxury, never having to fend for himself. When he came of age, he soon was offered cushy ambassador positions that required little more than a silver tongue to convince the Commonwealth that he was keeping busy. He soon grew so proficient at doing nothing much at all that he started spending all his family riches to assert his fame and status. One day, he attempted to pay off the wrong individual, and a particularly stern Commonwealth diplomat, who promptly turned him in and had him sent downriver. See, the Commonwealth isn't all bad. Manly was very disappointed by this, but he soon saw it as an opportunity. For he knew well that, the inner circles, there were those who had gone into exile and returned. Thanks to his connections, he tracked down the chastity deep in Wakingwood. He finagled his way into the triumvirate using his well-worn skills. He then in turn convinced himself that he would earn a position of great influence once he secured a way back to his home. He continues making his hollow promises. It would explain a lot if the council makers of the Commonwealth all turned out to be like him. Anyway, we ought to get some rest after today. See you in the morning. You bid Hedwin a good night and take your leave. It's too late now to prepare for flight, so you arrange to depart first thing in the morning. And yay, we get to talk to people. Oh. Hi. What's this? Bertrude's decks. Unusual etched cards depicting the greater titans, probably for curses and enchantments. Or maybe they're tarot cards. Maybe. Hey, Big Bertrude. That sounds like a porn name. I'm sorry. You find Big Bertrude looking about the black wagon in a disapproving way. She fixes her gaze on you. Her expression does not change. Oh god, I don't want to do this. Okay. Such a clutter added to this wagon since we looked upon it last, unsightly. We remember thee from our abode in flagging hands. Then thou must be the reading one to whom Sandalwood referred. She moves in close, studying you. You recall that a mere touch of a bog crone of the southern bogs can induce paralysis or worse. Thou once That one such as thee can extract meaning from that term. 'Twas a feat we wish to witness for ourselves. Thy flesh has seen but the smallest fraction of years which ours withstood, and yet we are expected to believe that thou canst understand the book of rites. Then she backs away, for someone else has joined you. Hail, Bertrude, madam. Is everything to your liking at this time, or is there something more which you require? She's like that overly... that girlfriend archetype, which is overly picky. Never mind. We have been unable to locate a supply of rotworm gizzard extract among thy belongings. Other than that, we shall lodge no complaint at present. Do they always refer themselves as we? It is possible that Volfred has a small supply among his possessions here. If you would care to accompany me, we may yet procure some. That would be agreeable with us. Are bog crones more than one being? Then after you, madame. There might be more than one being just sort of living in the body. I don't know. As they depart, you think you see the lone minstrel nod his head your way. I love the lone minstrel as well. Oh, hello. You know this game is 10 gigabytes in size, which is kind of crazy to think about comparatively. Something like Dark Souls 1 was, it's 10 gig, it's 3 gigs in size. Says a lot. You rise early that morning, though Bertrude is already awake. She scowls at you. Good morning, reader. Bertrude, I trust your stay has not been too uncomfortable? Nay, Sandalwood. The comforts of this place are not for us. Fly us forth from here to lower ground. Let us get on with all of this. The reader here shall do so once the group is ready. I thank you for your patience. I wonder if we go to flagging hands with Big Bertrude, does she get a boost to her morale? I wonder. You know, I don't think I've really explored this place up here. You know, since it's raining, oh, yeah, look at this. Point of interest. The inverted fall of Soliam. Oh, yeah, you can see it. Roars into the sky. Somewhere beyond it lies the Commonwealth, beyond your vision and beyond your grasp. If only we could just fly home right now. It looks like this thing just can't go any higher, though. And it's a long way up, that fall, isn't it? We'll get there yet. Just have to keep going. Yeah, the fall. It only flows upwards. I mean, it's always flowing upwards, but it only really opens up to people during the Liberation Rite. It straddles the right line between mysticism and, you know, fact. It's so weird, this game. I love it. The writing. Soaring far above Sklorian Shore, a frozen oasis stuck between the chaos of Wakingwood and the sacred Mount Elodiel. A place to pause and reflect before a grueling mountain climb. You notice Panther gazing down at the frozen cliffs below. Sklorian is the tree scribe. That damn place down there, I like it least of all. I think among everywhere we've been, I'm thankful that there's no reason to return. Reminds me of my home Isle, the High Wing remnants. We all grew accustomed to the thinner air amid the cliffs that breaches the clouds above your Commonwealth. But it was not the nicest place. Little wonder that my sisters settled for a rather warmer base of operations in this land, there by the nest of Trieste. Anyway, I'm pleased to have to spend a little time as possible near here. Let's fly on by, go about our business. It says a lot that the harp doesn't like... Oh, hello. Hey, what's the big idea, huh? Oh, it's you, Nightwings. Come to rub it in again, I guess. We Tempers, we've been trading flames with you who knows how long, so what, you got us once or twice lately. Matter of time before we go and get you back. Like never, dude. So you might want to keep that in mind next time you go messing with these horns, you hear me? Now get out of my sky. These guys are easily one of the easiest scribes, I find. Doom. The music here is great. Interesting that the harp doesn't like being reminded of her home. And the rain here is great. I remember my first impressions playing this game, thinking, I mean, I bought this completely blind. I knew the risks. I knew that this might not be a game for me. And when I started playing, I thought, like, damn it, this game is, you know, it's got a visual novel styled format, which I have traditionally not liked. But that said, yeah, so my first impressions of this game was like, oh man, I'm a shame. Bertrude slithers up to you as the back wagon passes through the skies above her former abode. Our kind who lurked below, they would scarce believe we saw above them now. We told them when Saddlewood came to fetch us that we shall not return for some time. Our most accomplished labourers, with whom we shared so many moons in exile, we trust that they shall carry forth the reputation of our services, for we taught them all we know. She seems almost nostalgic as she lists off various services provided at Big Bertrude's. Curses, wow, balms, potions, powders, cleaning reagents, sleep medicines, fungicides, seances. Big Bertrude's earned quite a name for herself throughout the downside for these and other things. When we are finished here, provided we do not return from whence we came, we shall return to our establishment and carry on our business there, for there is much demand. Good to hear. I was saying that, you know, my first impression of this game was somewhat, not disappointment in the game, but disappointment in myself. Oh, hi. Losers. Oh, we're all the way back down here again, huh? The spring of Dromua, we have always flown forth from the crushed carapace of Biolanthius, the Titan. The Hive Titan, vanquished by the scribe Dromua Manymane. From its remains flows a rejuvenating spring which gladdens up the valley's desolation, the Book of Rites. The legend whose demise is a rather sordid tale. Perhaps you have already read it in the book. We'll get to it soon enough. Not all believe the books exist, of course, nor the greater Titans, nor the Rites. I have encountered exiles believing that this Titan perished quite by accident rather than a cunning trap laid for it by Dromua Manymane. They took the Titan for a common beast. Haha, if only. Perhaps the stars shine down upon what out-of-the-way locales such as this one to ensure that they alone shall witness the proceedings. Huh. Okay. I find that fascinating, truth be told. Let's see, Rookie expressed an interest and Pamethyst spots convenient landing. Ooh, vocations or finding probably Stardust or a trinket. I wanna do my vocations. And you know, after I finished playing this game, I was saying that I was disappointed in I didn't like the format initially. I've come to love this game. I adore it. The writing. You touch down in the heart of Dromua Valley, where you first face the Fate and the Dissidents. You briefly wonder where they might be now and how they fare. Excuse me. You now have a little time before having to set forth by land. Excuse me. I'm losing my throat. God help me. I want to give a quick look at Bertrude, I mean. Alchemist, the Commonwealth Tolerator, the Bog Dwellers desiring the products of their sorcerous trade. The Bog Dwellers on the outskirts of the Commonwealth performed profane experiments with little supervision. We've seen... Oh, no, we have the observations. She's a Bog Dweller of considerable notoriety here in the downside and runs a sort of business bearing her own name. She has a forbidding way about her, but her respect for Volfred is evident, and even borders on affection. She seems to know much of the rites, despite not having conducted them prior to joining forces with you. Oh wow, look at how much enlightenment she has. We might just use her, actually. Volfred is poring over a copy of the Book of Rites as you approach. He looks up at you and smiles. The road to freedom written in the book that hardly anyone believes exists, and fewer still can read and comprehend. Sometimes I marvel how absurd all of this is, my girl. That's called lampshading. Tell me something though. I've spent so much time considering the book, but known so few with whom I could discuss it in much detail. You've had some time to turn through it by now, so what do you think? Worth all the fuss? I was going to read it after this conversation, actually. I find it fascinating. Come across more than your fair share of books, but none quite like this. Tedious? It's an archaic volume dense with lore you are not concerned with at this point. Ha! I get it. You only skimmed it. You would rather reserve judgment until you have had more reading time, or you cannot say. The Book of Rites is meant to be experienced and cannot be described. This is literally for the players to answer. I bet you there are some players who don't care, who literally think this is just lore, it doesn't matter. Some people who've looked through it but not really read into it yet. Some people who probably interpret the book to be, something that, oh, you experience it through the rites, or, like me, I find it fascinating. And as such, I click it. You tell Volfred the book has fascinated you and that you've never seen anything quite like it. He nods slowly as you describe your experience with it. I share the sentiment. To have in our possession a genuine artifact from a forgotten time, how much of it is exactly true, how much of it is the scribe's retelling of events. I find it endlessly fascinating to consider, I must admit. He puts away his copy of the book with care. It's amazing these volumes have survived for all this time, I think. Whatever they are made of has withstood the ravaging effects of time quite well, and the ideas they contain, they remain rather provocative as well. To think that the Commonwealth disavows the existence of this book despite official recognition of the 8 scribes. The book says so itself! Tell no one that the book exists. Tell no one the rites exist. Only the people who have returned from exile are allowed to know. Hence why only the people who have returned from exile are allowed to send others into exile, because they're the one. Yeah, it's a lot. Oh man, I love this game. Although the reason why you're in there, written plain. Although the reason why are in there, written plain, how fascinating that its secrets have been he literally said what I was saying. Anyway, you'll have to excuse me for my extracurricular interests in its teachings. I used to teach a version of its history. I used to have access to the real thing has brought me some small pleasure. Let us be certain to preserve these volumes for whomever shall be next to use them. The books are made out of the skin of Islach, Astralborn. He turns his attention to other matters and bids you a good afternoon. The books are made from the skin of Islach the Astralborn, like what the Bog Witch Udmild is saying, Islach hasn't died, he shall return. Yeah, that it's true. And, his skin in particular, it doesn't die. It's virtually indestructible. Like Islach himself. Given time, let's spend the last few minutes just reading the book. I think it's time. I'd like to. I love reading this. Forsaken lands concerning the races and ethnic groups displaced to and indigenous to the downside. Oh, hey. Oh, of course, the Bog Witch wrote this one. The words of Molten Melith, the Wild Witch. Let me get my reading voice on. Years upon years, we spent distilling life essence from many things which all at once writhed under the auspices of immortality, which we ourselves cut short. In this we have no regrets, for we learned much, and so we think did they. We earned the title Witch and were forced to flee into the downside. Here we encountered Soliam Mer, and soon we gained an understanding of each other. He bade us circumnavigate these lands and catalogue our findings. We felt a strong desire to expose the secrets of this land. He wished to yield benefit to those who followed in our wake. Indulge us both, then. Oh, awesome, I can control this using keyboard, so I have to hit T. Okay, I'll do that this way. The downside prairie. The downside is connected to our realm via a single artery, the river named for our prestigious sap colleague Lusclorian. That river gushes into seeming nothingness. That seeming nothingness turns out, of course, to be the downside. Its existence undermines thousands of years of thought about the composition of our world. Hey, a flat earth! The downside's southern edges we call the sandfolds. Yeah, we call the Sandsfolds. It's a desecrated wasteland speaking well to its land's lack of hospitality. Here, the strength of many who survived the river journey finally fails. If only they could clamber further north, where lies the verdant downside prairie. A better place to perish, to be sure. What a morbid way of phrasing that. Jomul Valley. The downside prairie first appears serene. It is not. The soil there accommodates only the region's brutish native vines and overbrush. The most likely food source proves poisonous. Thus we journeyed further north. The climate there grew fouler to my senses, though the Kurjomur found it amenable. This sprawling valley, pocked with long evaporated lakes, gives evidence to the monstrosities which roamed this land. We found the region's western edge to be more pleasant on the whole. Therein, we found sources of fresh water, whereas over to the east, we found the edge of the land's most hideous decay. Flagging Hands. Beyond the valley lies the Flagging Hands, which could be called a swamp. If an entire sea could be merely a lake. Soon after our arrival, several of us fell into a dark despair, such were the environs. I found it rather fascinating, though. It held aspect reminiscent of the southern berg we dwelt in as a tad. We grew accustomed to the dampness of the air and grew to savour certain twigs and beetles. It can be said that Flagging Hands are an acquired taste, recommendable only for those of our same bent, or perhaps the downside's native imps. The sea surrounded the environs on three sides, appearing insurmountable at first. Next. Sea of Solace. Beyond a shallow, sickly gulf, our voyage grew increasingly forbidding and much harder to explain. How could a sea exist here at the bottom of the world? How could it not? We could not deduce whence sprang the carcasses of ancient sailing ships we found throughout the Sea of Solace, though the warnings that they signified we duly noted. It was here we first met Oris, called the Underking, who brazenly assaulted our small skiff, for we had trespassed his waters. But then the Underking relented, for he witnessed Soliam Mer in all his doom and glory. Soon he would side with us. What does that mean? He witnessed Soliam Mer in all his doom and glory. Then with the Underking, we sailed forth into a tempest beyond reasoning or measure. Deathless Tempest. We awaited for the Deathless Tempest to subside. We awaited, but the Underking, he merely laughed and laughed, for the Deathless Tempest does not subside. What lies beneath that stretch of sea to cause such an upheaval is best left to myth and speculation. We made passage nonetheless through sorcerous aid and fortune, scarce seeing the surrounding environs. We did detect a landform to the west. Soliam Mer detected there the presence of the treacherous aide who lured him into exile and then followed him in turn. Mer in his wisdom thought it best to be avoided. At last did we arrive on distant lands, though seeing them provided little comfort. What was that? Kalima, rope caller, you might recall. Black Basin. In the continent we called Black Basin shall one day tear itself apart, arriving upon blackened molten crags, tolerable only by the harp Trieste. We passed onwards towards a suffocating wood. This land felt to us somehow primordial. Deep in its root and nauseous crevices lay innumerable clues as to its ancient history, but we had little time to excavate, for our supplies by then were thin. Further, we were lost. Our best attempts at circumnavigation all had failed. It was Luz Glorian who reached out at last unto the stars, and they revealed the way. What does that mean? Then we at last could see the sacred Mount Elodiel there in the distance. Is he suggesting that Luz Glorian used the stars to navigate, or the stars led? Gaining the summit of the Mount Elodiel. Gaining the summit of sacred Mount Elodiel involved no small amount of sacrifice and sorcery in varying proportions. The mountain's energies were palpable, the sensation that we felt indescribable. The lands we stood upon were closer to the stars than the world we knew. It was upon this highest point in all of the downside that we first made efforts to concord this tome, which you now read. It was there that we were stricken with a vision of the cycle of the rites and felt, together, for the first, a sense of freedom unlike any we experienced before. But that is a subject which our comrades shall illuminate in greater detail. End chapter. That's the wrong button. It's meant to be backspace. Yeah, I believe the water, the sacred inverted fall of Mount Elodiel is actually the blood of Islach, I think. But in any case, that brings this episode to an end. So hey, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate your viewership. Stay tuned. Going to be a couple more episodes, plenty more episodes of Pyre coming in future. But until then, see you then. Bye.